Guys, good morning to you all. I hope you had a good morning and you're all fresh and ready. Okay, so this is week 5, and what we're going to look at today is Google Analytics. And this is essentially what we're going to talk about here is how to test and measure and track what your actions are actually creating. Okay, so in this presentation, we're going to use Google as the example. But I would like to just say up front, you can use multiple sources of analytic tools like pWiki, and there's others on the market, so you don't have to specifically use Google. We're speaking about Google just because it is mainstream and it's what most people are familiar with. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so you know the team, Sue, Russell, Jimmy, Kevin, myself. Okay, so what we're going to look at today, we're going to start off with what is web analytics. Then we're going to hop across to what's the purpose of analytics. Then we're going to speak slightly about segmenting and filtering your web analytic data. We're going to talk about discovering your audience. We're going to speak about landing pages and exit pages, campaigns, setting up tagging, and then goals. Okay, and this is roughly the top level ideas that you have to deal with when you start working with analytics. And the whole point of analytics is to actually get the metrics that you need to make better decisions in what you're going to do with your website, how you're going to improve your ROI for your business, and how you're going to actually cut down your IT debt, okay, because all this information comes together and helps you make better decisions. Right, so web analytics. Most people look at Google Analytics and they freak out just because of all the functions and features. What I want to say today, guys, is don't get caught up by the interface, but start becoming clear on what it is that you want to find out. Okay, and that's what we're going to briefly look at today is the core components that you need to get the information back from your websites when you build them out and track them. Okay, so what is web analytics? Modern business intelligence and digital analytic tools give us the ability to collect staggering amounts of data. And with all the tools we use today like TLKT, Kraken, DWS, all these tools that we've created, plus SEMrush, plus Majestic, plus Ahref, plus all the other tools that we use out there, there's so much data coming back that it can become very overwhelming. So when we get to analytics, our brains are already probably fried already. So we want to simplify down things that we need and get straight to the answers that we want to make more money. Okay. So from a business perspective, what we need to be able to answer is all the questions that are fundamental to effectively change our marketing and to grow our business. Okay, so what we really care about in analytics is the performance of our content, how visitors are interacting with our site, what marketing channels are working and are driving business, and that's the important one. It must drive business. If you're doing a lot of marketing and you're getting a lot of traffic, but the traffic's not converting, then that should raise a question mark. And then also, which devices are your visitors using? How are they actually connecting with your content? You might find out you might enter into certain markets and most of your audience is mobile driven. Okay, so then what that means is it opens up whole different channels for your business where you can start thinking from mobile ads, the way your website gets presented, mobile websites, and so on. And then obviously, when you look at your landing pages and exit pages and seeing where guys are bouncing out, that's where you start thinking about, okay, what can be improved? Okay. So the purpose of analytics, okay, goals. The goals are what allow us to evaluate quality traffic from poor performing traffic. And the way we go about doing this is getting traffic to the site is not enough. We need to understand how to effectively transact with our visitors. Now, no visitor behaves in the same way. Some people go online, they purchase. Some people fill in forms, others simply phone the phone number and like to speak to people. Some people are paranoid. Maybe they don't like doing online banking, maybe they don't like doing stuff, maybe they heard about Skype and they're just running away from the web. The point I'm trying to make here is that everyone interacts with your website in a different way. And what we want to try and find and understand here is the patterns and how they actually use the site. And then we want to start segmenting those into little groups and then finding how we can create better transactions. So in order to analyze which sources and types of traffic are valuable, we need to track what those visitors are doing on your site, what content works, how they're using the site, and ultimately figure out how to segment them and understand why they're doing what they're doing on your website. Okay, so that's typically the purpose of web analytics. Okay, so web analytics gives us the ability to turn the big data sets that we have into business sense. And That's the key thing. We want to always think about the business sense. What is the business requirement? What are our goals? What do we want to achieve? And we're going to use analytics to get that information. Okay, so we're going to talk about understanding goals now. In reality, not every business has e-commerce. Many websites are designed to generate business leads. Okay, not everybody sells stuff. A lot of places have got services. A lot of people have specific products that they sell, but it's not necessarily an e-commerce driven type of website where they've got thousands of products. Okay, so if you've got a contact form and you're doing lead gen on your site, that is also a perfect goal. It's a great way to determine good traffic from bad. Now, what I want you guys to start thinking about at the beginning of this conversation is that almost everything with a link is trackable, and today I'm going to show you how to go about doing that. So when you think about a page and the content on the page, if you href h1 tag as an example, that can be tracked. Any link that's on the page can be tracked. Any image, any piece of media can be tracked, okay? And we're going to show you how to do that. And what I want to say up front is you don't have to track everything, okay? You only need to track what makes business sense. So what is the objectives that you have, what you need to achieve, and how do you need to measure it? Those are the core things what you should be thinking about when you're working with analytics. Okay, so for now, I want you to be thinking in the back of your mind, why do you have a site, and what are those goals that you're going to have to track? Okay, by clearly defining your goals, you make your segmentation and your filtering simpler to implement. Okay, so if you try and go into analytics with a vague idea of what you want to do, you're going to end up spending a lot of time just futzing around. But if you've got a clear goal, if the site you build is just for lead gen and the sole purpose of the website is to have someone fill in a form, the only goal that you really have is to track if they're actually filling in the form. So traffic comes in, they hit the form, they fill it in, they go down. Now we can get more bit advanced with this, and we can actually look at what page they're coming in on and where they fill in that form. We can find and extract those metrics, and that will help us find the user paths, and that's how we can start putting better banners and better advertising in the right places on the actual site. Guys, can you give me a 1 if you can hear me clearly? I just saw a few things coming in there, so to make sure my voice is coming through clearly. Okay, awesome. I'm assuming all of you guys have played around with Google Analytics. Can you give me a 1 if you're familiar with Google, or a 2 if you're not really messed around in it at all? Okay, awesome. Okay, so how many of you guys have actually played with segmenting your data and filtering it to get the answers that you need? Give me a 1 if you're familiar with segmenting and filtering data, or if this is something you're not really, a 2 if you're not really played around with it much. Okay. Coming from a programming background, when we're working with filtering, if you're working with MySQL and databases, typically all the data goes in, and when we write a query, we don't want to extract all that information back out again. We use where clauses to basically extract the information that we want specific to a part of the data set. So the same applies to Google. As Google tracks and measures our websites and activities, that's all getting pushed into a database, and it's grabbing a lot of information. But all that information is not necessarily good for us. We only want to find out specific things about it. Okay, so the real insights lie when we can segment our groups of visitors to understand their behavior. Segmentation is the first step in your analysis, and instead of looking at your analytical data as one huge data set, segment and group into various segments that have meaning to your business. Okay, example. If you're looking for where your visitors come from geographically, if your site is targeting US-based visitors, and most of your visitors are coming from the UK, segmenting and filtering the data set reveals what your efforts are yielding in the USA. By filtering out the UK visitors, you can now clearly see what the US audience is doing on your site, what cities they're coming from, what devices they're using, and most importantly, how many of them are actually completing the goals set for that site. So what we're going to look at today and talk about is understanding the segmenting and the filtering of our data sets to get down to what we really need to do. And this is why clearly defining the purpose of the goal is so important. So when you get your site, you can actually go and say, okay, this site needs to do X. You go and configure your reports, you filter, you segment, and you get that result back. Okay. Now, when we filter and segment by traffic, the traffic sources are important segments. It tells us what campaigns are most effective. We can compare campaigns, and most importantly, you get to see where the visitors are falling out of your funnel, and you can ask the questions: why did the user hit that? Why did the user hit the back button? Segmentation and filtering gives you the ability to segment by landing pages by simply splitting the site into two groups: those who have reached our goals versus those who didn't. And it's very revealing and helps us identify what pages need more work done to them. Okay, so do you guys basically get that concept? Either they meet the goal or they don't. And if they don't, we need to put them in a bin and then figure out why they haven't actually done what we want them to do. Can you give me one if you understand what I'm trying to say here, and two if it's not clear? Because what I'm trying to do with you guys here is really dumb down this whole process of analytics to a point where we've got a few binary switches in our minds that we can switch. Have they achieved the goal or haven't they? If they haven't achieved the goal, why haven't they achieved the goal? And that helps us identify the pages, and it helps us identify the traffic sources that are not working, and that then helps us deal with IT debt, i.e. we're not going to spend money on things that are not working. Or if the traffic is coming in, maybe it's going to the wrong landing page. Maybe the message on the landing page is weak and it's not actually converting them. But that unlocks those questions we need to ask when we actually want to refine a website. Okay. So as you can see, as I'm speaking here, I'm breaking down the components of this whole thing into small little segments that are easy to deal with. Okay. So discovering your audience. Now the audience report gives you the number and types of visitors as well as basic information about the nature of their visit. Now this is quite a good section of Google Analytics. By tweaking the dimensions of these reports, we can dig deeper into the activities. So what the audience reports basically give us is the location and geographical data. It gives us their language preferences. It helps us differentiate between new and returning visitors. It helps us understand their loyalty. We can compare according to visits, visitors, and page views. We can sort by browser and mobile usage. And we can visually see through visitor navigation paths via the visitor flow. We can actually see how they're moving through the site. So let's just make up an example here. In the previous slides, I said we were targeting a US audience, and we're getting a lot of traffic from the UK. Now, the message that we put out there could be about what Network Empire does. It's attracting, it's hit a button with the people in the UK, but the product we want to sell is more US specific. Let's just make up something saying we're selling a specific service that's only viable in the US. There's a few things we can do with that type of scenario when we look at the audience view. Okay, it doesn't mean the traffic's bad. It just means that there are people in another country that are actually interested in what we're doing in the US. So when we read the data within analytics, we need to just look at it from an open perspective and try and understand what is actually going on with that user or those users as they actually move through the website. Guys, can you give me one if you understand what I was saying there, or if I need to sort of clarify that a bit more? Okay, cool. I'm glad you guys are with me.
There's a lot of
so,
ones
yeah, typically
there,
what I do with my analytics, yes, it's going good. Yeah, so typically what I do in my mind, guys, when I work with analytics is I constantly dump things down, and I constantly look at what the users are doing. Okay. So landing pages and exit pages. So we've got all this traffic coming from the UK. All the UK guys want what Network Empire is selling. And what we need to do is we need to look at our landing pages, and we want to know who is completing the goal of the page and who is actually exiting the page and why. So on our page, we could say this traffic is only for, this service is only for the US visitors. And that will create an exit. People read it, oh, it's not for us, okay, and they'll be off. So that's what I'm trying to get to. When the traffic comes in that we've created, where's it going to, and is the page that they're actually landing on relevant to what's being promised on the actual ad or the banner or the WR2 or WRS2 platform that sent the traffic to us. Okay. So if we have a high exit rate on a landing page, you can use the following filters to help understand why they're leaving. Are the keywords that are driving traffic to the page, promotions or AdWords, relevant to the landing page? Is what's being promised in the ad or promotion fulfilled on the landing page? And is the call to action on the landing page clear? Is the audience interested in what the landing page has to offer? Think language, geographical location, or topic. Now, a lot of the times, if you just start with those points and you start thinking about those things, that actually helps us figure out what is going on. Okay. So in this image here, what I've basically done was I just put a little markup of how our traffic typically flows with what we teach at Network Empire with our WR1, WR2, WR3 network system. So we've got WRS traffic coming from our social platforms to a landing page. We've got social explosion driving traffic to our landing pages. We've got one-feed traffic coming to our landing pages. And we've got pivot traffic. That's all flowing in. And they're coming from all different places. And they're coming from all kinds of different promotions related to that specific page. Now these people that pick up this thread, when they flow in, they only got two options. It's either for them or it's not. So they'll either exit the page or they'll actually go and complete the goal that we want them to complete. Whether it's buying something, whether it's filling in a form, or whether it's taking a survey, the purpose of the landing page or the goal of the landing page must be congruent to where the traffic sources are coming from. So this is where your promotions that you do are very important. You've got to think from the promotion point of view right through to the analytical point of view. So when you're writing your promotional articles, guys, and you're building your landing pages, think about the analytic point of view of, okay, when these guys land here, how are we going to segment them and how are we going to deal with them and how are we going to actually figure out why they're leaving. Okay. Now, if the thing is limited to people from the US, obviously we'll have a high exit rate. Now, that doesn't mean when we got high exit rates, there are multiple reasons. It could just be your copy is really bad or the offer is not relevant to the people that are actually coming in. And that's why we use the audience section of analytics to actually see where they're coming from, what language they're speaking. Sometimes you might find you get a lot of people come from foreign countries who don't speak English and they're sort of interested but they don't really get what they're saying and they could exit as well. So those are typical scenarios that you'll find with your landing pages and your exit pages. Okay, so here we've got an image here and this is tracking the paths of that your visitors take. Okay, so Kev, do you want to have any comments on this specific slide here and any thoughts on what I've said so far? I'm sort of hogging the conversation.
You're doing fine. So where we are now, folks, is taking all of that information that Matt's given over to you. We're now at the point where we're looking inside of Google Analytics and we're looking at one of the results pages that you can create. So the first column you see there of the source medium, with the tracking that you're going to be putting in place, essentially what you're going to be doing is creating a multifaceted URL from or to your website which has been broken down with defined aspects, elements, and this is the source, the UTM source and the UTM medium. Now we'll come into these a little bit later on, but what you see there is the source where it says add one silo plugin. That was where this particular batch of visitors come from. So the silo plugin we've got, we can see that it was the first advert there, and the add one silo plugin, this could be improved. So what we've done here is to show you how it works, we've created the source and the medium using the same sort of text. Now in your ideal world, as we'll cover in a couple of screens time, these will be broken down into the source. Which of your sites did the traffic come from? You know, was it as a result of a tweet? Was it as a result of an advert somewhere, a banner ad somewhere, one of your PinVid sites? And then the medium will be another aspect of that link. What happens is that you construct this URL and everything is broken down. So that goes back to the first element that Matt said to you, which is you have to have a clearly defined understanding of what it is that you want to track so that you know what to improve later on. And within Google, what happens here is that the next page path, it is showing you where the ad come from, and then the path that the person who clicked on that link took in the next step in their path. So essentially what you're doing is you have the clearly defined goal of where you want to track, what you want to track, what you want to improve, and you place that within the funnel. The whole idea of everything is that you have all of this traffic coming in into your sales funnel, whether it be to purchase a product or on a landing page and capture an email address, whichever aspect of the sales funnel that you've got, Google gives you the ability to see the next click and track that path that your visitor takes through your site. So can we move on to the next screen there, please, Matt?
That's also useful. Also useful for the audience to know, which I don't think was made clear, is that that previous small data, tiny data set was traffic from inside a plugin environment. It wasn't even a website. So you can use the code in more than just one. It doesn't have to be only websites.
Yeah. So that is the source and the medium. So, you know, the source could be a site and the medium could be an advert within that site. The source could be a plugin, and in this case an advert within the plugin. You're only limited by your imagination as to what you want to track and why you want to track it. So
like I said earlier, Kev, just to compliment what you and Russ have said, guys, so just remember, anything with an Ahref can be tracked. So any link can be tracked in any entity, i.e. a plugin, a PDF, it doesn't matter. Any Ahref can be tracked. That's just what I want to say. Sorry, Kev, carry on.
Yeah, now what I was just going to say was on the next screen we can sort of go a little bit deeper into this with everyone. And we're looking here how to track the flow of your visitors through the site. Now, this is just another one of the advantages of using Google. Piwik does the same. Most of the other open source variants to manage the tracking will do this as well. And when Matt was on about the country, if you're targeting the US and you're getting visitors from the UK and you want to see where they started in the funnel and their interaction path through, you've got this within the user's flow option. And you can see here within this particular graphic, the bulk of the visitors are coming from the US, closely followed by the UK and Canada. And as you move from left to right, you can see where your visitors clicked as the starting page, and there's that little red piece towards the right of that green bar, and that is the drop-off. So when you click into this within Google, you're going to see that out of, for example, the 1.4K visitors that you had, there was a percentage of those people that dropped off. Now, if the drop-off is exceedingly high, you need to look at this page and decide why wasn't it relevant for these people. And this then comes back to what Matt was saying, is the landing page. Is the copy that is on the page meeting the promise that was made as to how they got there? So there's lots of options throughout this whole flow for you to increase the amount of time your visitors spend on the site and stop them leaving your site by reviewing the message that you've got before, and to ensure that you're delivering that message on the landing pages and throughout the interaction of the funnel. And as you can see here, the green bar gets narrower and narrower. And this is pretty natural. If you've got a solid green bar all the way along that's the same sort of green width, that means that you've got no one dropping off, you're meeting your promises, everybody is loving the path from start to finish, and that is the ideal to get to. Now,
yeah, that's perfect.
That's the ideal.
That's what
that
everybody
you will
wants
be
to
getting
achieve.
for. Yeah. We all want that. If you don't see that, don't worry about it, because in the real world there will be a drop-off for whatever reason. You can't please all of the people all of the time. But as people move through this path from left to right, as long as at the far right you are meeting your financial goals, you're doing okay. And then it's a case of looking, where am I losing the visitors the most? Is there anything that I can do to stop or reduce the loss of those visitors? Now, can I get a 1 if you all understand those principles, or a 2 if we need to go over them a bit more? Excellent.
Kev, there's a question by Kevin. I just want to address quickly.
Yep.
Can I just jump in quickly? It's about the countries.
Please do.
Kevin, if you got people coming from a specific country, you can use a little PHP script that picks up their IP range, and you can actually redirect them to a specific page.
Hey, Matt.
There are programmatic ways to actually go and do that.
Hey, Matt, sure. Can you reiterate the question? The audience didn't hear it.
Beg your pardon. Kevin asked, how can you send specific countries to specific landing pages? And if you type into Google GeoIP, they give away a free database where you can actually pick up on all the IP addresses of different countries, the subsets, and you can actually use a PHP script to either do it, or you can basically just do little tricks, like some people put like little flags. If you're from Britain, click here. If you're from America, click on the flag, and that can take them. But if you want it automated, it can be programmed. It's not difficult at all.
And you can expand on that further as well, Kevin, that you needn't just use that script on your landing page so that visitors that have clicked on a generic advert land on a US specific page, a UK specific page, or a Canadian specific page. You can use the same script so that visitors from different countries see specific text, copy, or advertising on the page prior to your landing page. Okay. Let's look at the next slide now, Matt, and we'll move on from there unless there's any other questions from anyone on tracking the flow of your visitors as we've covered it so far.
I just want to say one thing on this screen here. Guys, when you get into the screen and you click on user flow in Google, when you click on the blue bar, it's going to highlight all the paths the US folks took. So the blue bar will go up in a dark blue color, and that's quite useful. When you click on the specific things, you can actually see the flows. That's just what I wanted to say. So every element on this actual flow chart is interactive, and when you click on it, it gives you a response or gives you information back. Okay. There you go, Kev.
Yep. So where do you lose your visitors? Now, the whole point of this is that the analytics will not only show you the paths that people take through, but the exit pages of your visitors. And this is really important. We've covered it to one degree or another, but we can't stress enough the importance of looking at your analytics and identifying early and throughout the whole process, you know, whether that be a development process or an ongoing process over a number of years, to keep reviewing your analytics to know any changes. Where the exit pages are identified, you really do need to go and look at the path and then the page. What was it, in your opinion, that led the visitors to leave at that point? Now, it might not always be obvious. Other times, once you've got more information, it's easy to see that, you know, sort of the promise wasn't met, or they've come from product A and they've landed on product B, which is not what they want. Other times it might be the copy within the page. It could be poorly written, it could be something about the headline that doesn't do them. You just have to look at this. And this is where the test and track method comes in. So while you've got your pages there and you can identify through analytics where your exit pages are, you may need to at some stage consider split testing a page to see if you can improve something. Now, split testing will cover at another time, but the whole point here is that look at your analytics on a regular basis. It doesn't need to be every day. There is a risk with analytics that once you start looking at them, that it can become highly addictive, that you spend all your time looking at the traffic on an hourly basis or a daily basis. At this level, you don't need to do it every day. If, sort of depending on the size of your site, once a week, once a month will be adequate. Because if you're spending all your time looking at analytics and small numbers and you're making changes on small numbers, you could be missing the bigger picture. So the takeaway here is, depending on the size of your site, the traffic coming through your site, decide whether you want to look at your analytics weekly or monthly, and when you've got enough stats, make changes then. Now, figures for enough stats will vary from statistician, try saying that without putting your teeth in, from statistician to statistician, but realistically, in my opinion, you need to have at least 1,000 to 1,500 sort of figures, hits, visitors, before you should even consider making any changes of any nature. So again, just keep it.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like we may have lost Kevin.
Yeah, sound cut out. I appreciate that, Neil. You lost me. Hopefully you can hear me again now.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, can you, Kev?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for letting me know, folks. Just a glitch. I saw a warning on the screen. So what I was saying was, just don't get addicted to the stats. They're going to be there. Once you set this up, they're going to keep coming in. A watch pot never boils. Come back weekly, monthly. Make your decisions then. Move on. Take proactive action. If you see a weak point, keep an eye on it and take action. I think that's about all I can say on that screen, Matt. Let's move on to the next one, unless anyone's got any questions on this section. Okay. Campaigns.
So guys,
this bit, Matt.
Okay, no worries. So guys, are you all cool with what Kev showed us there? You sort of got the feeling of what we're doing there. Don't get paralyzed by overanalysis, like Kevin says. We need numbers to make better decisions. So if you're a niche type of website and you're only getting 50 hits a week or a month, let it sit for 3, 4, 5 months. Let it build up some stats and then see what's going on. If you want to speed things up, you can potentially run AdWords ads and do a PPC test campaign just to get the numbers flowing faster through the site. But that's paper testing. That's a whole different story. We're not going to speak about that today. Okay, so campaigns, setting up your campaigns. Okay, so in order to work effectively with campaigns, you need to understand what sources and mediums are. So what I'm going to do in this section is I'm going to explain the 2 points just to really simplify them. And when you get them, then you start seeing how simple campaigns actually become, because we can clearly define what they're doing. Now remember, we're working with parameters, and these parameters are getting dropped into the query string, which actually goes into the URL when we start our tracking. Now in order to start tracking, we want to create a campaign for either a project or for a media type. So whether it's an image, a PDF, whatever, we need to have a campaign running. Okay, so like in the example we saw earlier, in the plugin we had a specific ad that was driving people in, and then from there they'll jump into the comparison page within Network Empire. So we can actually see the clear path. Okay, and we can also have that reference coming back to what we're doing. So sources and mediums are at the heart of every campaign. Google uses sources and mediums when a visitor starts to figure out what bucket actually belongs in, so to say. So this is how traffic is segmented. Medium is a broad segmentation or grouping by type of traffic. You can't really identify detail here. And the reason why I say that is, for example, you want to have things like social, PPC, broad phrases that can encapsulate a series of things. So social media is sort of, we know Facebook, Pinterest, and the likes sort of fit into that whole story. Sources are the who, the detail. So medium is the broad, it's the category, and sources is the detail. It's the definition of what is actually creating that traffic. Okay, so in this example, our medium would be social, and the source would be Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, whose medium is social. Guys, can you give me one if you get these 2 points, because this is basically at the foundation of everything else we're going to speak about as we move forward. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Medium, broad, sources, specific. That's basically how I go about dealing with it. Sources and mediums are just 2 ways to classify traffic, but if you just think of the source and the medium and use them as the baseline of what you want to do, as we move on through the next few slides, you're going to actually see why I've said do this now, because as we come to creating our trackable URLs, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to test and measure and track what's going on there. And one thing we need to know is if we haven't got if we haven't got standards or a specific naming convention of how we go about setting up our analytics, our reports will come back and the information will be skewed, and we're going to have a mismatch of things, and it will be duplications, and after a few days of looking at the reports, it'll just be rubbish. No one will actually pay much attention to it. If we clearly define the source and the medium up front, we've got the containers to put the right traffic in, and then we use those identifiers throughout the life cycle of that actual campaign. Okay, so yes, just to give you some more examples of how mediums and sources work together. So for medium, we could have paid search, and one of the sources could be AdWords, another one could be Facebook ads, another one could be Bing, another one could be Yahoo. I just make this up, but these could be all paid search revenues. So we can have a campaign that falls under paid search. We can run ads on AdWords, we can run ads on Bing, and we can run ads on Facebook. What happens when we actually look at our reports, Google will show us the medium, we can filter by paid search, and we'll get a correlation which actually shows us AdWords versus Bing versus Yahoo versus Facebook. We can actually look at the 4 sources and we can see which are best performing. Okay, another medium are WR2 sites. We could have a persona site focused on the silo of a WR1, money site. Okay, so under WR2 sites, we can have multiple persona type sites, or we can have multiple WR2 sites, or we can have multiple WRS sites. Okay, so WRS sites, we could have Facebook, social, Pinterest. These could be profiles that we create for our personas that actually come back. We can actually categorize those things under our WRS sites. It's whatever has meaning to you. So mediums are user specific, we create them, okay, as well as the sources. But what I want to show you here is think about a naming convention so that you can actually standardize what the information is that you want to bring back, and then you always use them over and over again, and you assign things to the specific categories that you've set up for the mediums. That way we can do cross-referencing and we can do cross-analysis against different multiple campaigns of search. Okay, banner ads could be another medium. We could have Network Empire banner ads, we could have Kraken banner ads, we could have TLKT banner ads, but they all fall under banner ads. Okay. Email lists, we can have email lists, Tech Foundation 1, Tech Foundation 2, Tech Foundation 3. Print and offline, we could have adverts running in Tech News magazine. I just made that up, it's not a real world magazine, or it could be, but we could have multiple magazines that are offline that are actually driving traffic. Now, when we bought the properties in my property business a few years back, we essentially printed ads in 4 or 5 local newspapers that covered different regions, and we categorized those as offline and medium, and we could actually track them back, and we could see by the coupon codes the guys typed into the website, we could actually check and see which ads were actually generating the most, and in analytics we could see the traffic that was coming back from those adverts. Okay, then SMS, I just put in Twilio. Twilio is a great platform. We're going to speak about that a bit later on, but that's also another source that we can also use for other functions, especially in lead generation. It's a super powerful app to get familiar with. Okay, so source and mediums. You can draw down into your analytics. So, Kev, do you want to have something to say here?
Yeah, it is literally exactly what we've got there. The analytics are very, very flexible, and you need to drill down into the various aspects to get the best results. So here, the primary dimension, i.e. the view that you are looking at, we have, for this screenshot, captured the source and the medium. Now, we've used the same name for both for this sort of 2-hour snapshot there. And you can see that the source and the medium, the source is the multi-channel uni-site, and the medium for this was the under video text banner. Now, in this particular case, we didn't have multiple variants of the ads under the video. So we were able just to capture the effectiveness of that particular banner at that particular place, and we didn't have the need to change the names. Depending on how you are advertising, are you split testing ads, are you testing different papers or whatever, as Matt's just said, the naming convention to make it easier for you is all important. As you can imagine, just looking at this, if you've got sort of 100, 200 ads out and they're all the same and you haven't got your naming convention right, it's going to look very, very cluttered for you. So again, just to reinforce what Matt has said, take the time to work out what you want to track and use the source and medium conventions as you go along. And in this particular screenshot, you can see that the source and the medium that we chose for that particular advert for this couple of hours slot, the benefit to us here was 65 new users and the bounce rate. You know, no one bounced. So we knew at this point that this source, this medium, i.e. the place, with that particular ad was working for us as we go on. So before we go on to sort of the next screen, are there any sort of, do you all understand what Matt and I are saying here? Can I get a 1 if you understand the importance and the difference between the source and the medium and the naming conventions, and a 2 if we need to go over it, please?
Yeah, Kev, I just want to say one more thing there, just to bring back what I spoke about filtering and segmenting earlier. When you set up your mediums and your sources correctly, the filtering and the segmentation of your actual data becomes much, much simpler because you've got a standardized, uniform naming convention that runs through your whole data set. And it helps you break things down to specifics, and that's what gives you the answers you need. And if you're doing client work, that means you can drill down into your analytics and you can actually give them specifics that make sense to them. Okay. So, do you want me to change the slide, Kev? I don't think there's any questions there. Everyone seems to be on path with us.
Excellent. So on the next screen, what we're going to look at here is another factor in the URL that we're going to show you how to create is your campaign and the campaign name. Now this is going to appear within your analytics as one of the primary sources for you to click on and investigate. And here you can see a number of the different campaigns that we ran over a given period, and each one is easy to disseminate from the other. We know exactly where it's come from, and you can look at this, and this is the kind of difference that you want. You don't want campaigns that are too similar unless it's a batch of newspapers, you know, sort of The Sun newspapers, Daily Mail. You want to try and keep your campaign names in common, simple English that means something to you. They don't need to mean anything to Google or anyone else, but as long as they mean something to you and you can disseminate the ad that you were running, and the period of time. That's what you're looking for with the campaign names. So keep them simple, keep them relevant to you, and then you can see as you move along the acquisition and the behavior that Google Analytics give you. You get all of your averages and everything else, and from this you can gauge the effectiveness of the campaign that you're running, and that in conjunction with the source and the medium allows you even greater segmentation of all of the work and the effort that you're putting in. Okay, is there any sort of questions that people have got on what we've come up to this point? I think it's probably a good point now, Matt, just sort of to get any questions that we've got sort of come through before we move on to the next section, which will be tagging. So very quickly, has anyone got any questions on what we've covered so far? Sure. If you get them in. If you're ready for us to move on, if we can get a 1, we'll move on to the next section for you. It doesn't look like there's... yeah.
I don't want to hijack the conversation at all, but I would like just a quick interaction, just a yes or no. I'm kind of polling a little bit for a skill set. If you guys have all used the campaign section inside Google Analytics, please give me a 1. If you've never used the campaign section inside Google Analytics to differentiate your tracking campaigns, give me a 2. Okay, about half and half. Actually, the majority have not. Interesting. Okay, that does help us a lot, you guys. Thank you. So that means that this is very important. Also, and let me ask you one last question, and then I'll get out of your guys' way. If you are using Google Analytics mostly, give me 1. If you are using other tracking systems other than Google Analytics because you are paranoid, give me a 2. Okay, so it's about even keel. Some of you are, and some of you are not. We know we get people from all walks of life with different perceptions. So thank you for that. Okay, that's all that we needed. Just the audience poll, just so you know, it was most people are feeling safe using Google Analytics. There's a few people that are feeling paranoid. Okay, good, and thank you so much, guys. That helps us. That helps us sculpt our data and our training for you, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, just for the guys that were on the call yesterday, I think it's fine to use Google Analytics on your money site. It's when you're trying to do things that you don't want Google to know about.
Okay, I'm glad Sue is here. That's really where I was going. We are going to be slowly acclimating you to the Skyfall update, and so Sue has just given me permission to just emphasize there. One of the releases in the Skyfall update is just a degree of security, and in regards to our suspicion about the UA code for Google Analytics and the possibility that if you're using Java and others that it could be, actually probably is, detrimental to your, if you're doing things like, can I use the PBN word, Sue, or? No, I'm not supposed to. Okay. Well, it's like I feel like I got to walk on glass now all over the place now. Look, eggshells rather. Wow, that was a Freudian slip. If you guys are building complex private blog networks, specifically in that term, not the kind that we teach, not PBABNs, like not private personal brand broadcasting networks. It's a little bit different. If you're building PBNs for the sake of ranking, that's low traffic, low frequency of publish, pre-purchased domains. If you're building a network out for the exclusive purposes of gaming Google, generally speaking, when you're using Google Analytics, you're going to want to do something different. You're going to want to be, it's okay to be paranoid when you're doing that, is what we're saying.
And so like this course is about the WR1 site.
Right.
So that's why we're talking a lot about Google Analytics. When we get to level 4 and we're talking about the WR2 and WR3 rings and tracking that stuff, then we'll show you other analytics options.
It's a habo naba labo of paranoia. Okay. All right, so we'll let you guys. All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, so seems like everyone's on game here. Right, so just a quick recap, guys. We started off, we spoke about the idea of filtering and segmenting data. We then built on that idea and we introduced you to basically your sources and your mediums. And now we jumped onto campaigns. Now we're going to start, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start speaking about the two types of taggings that can actually happen. There's automatic taggings and there's also manual tagging. We're going to get into that next. Okay, guys, can you give me a 1 if you're comfortable to move on? If you still got questions, please ask them now, else we will carry on. Okay, cool. Let's see what's next. Campaign tagging. Okay, who knows what campaign tagging is? Give me a 1 if you've ever heard of this before, or 2 if you have not. Okay, everyone knows what the tagging is. Cool. Okay. Basically, when you want to track your activities, you do campaign tagging, and this is how you tag all the information. This is how you tell Google what's coming from where. They grab those parameters and then they actually put them into your reports. We've got 2 types of tracking: automatic detection, auto tagging, and this happens with AdWords. When you run AdWords, you can actually turn auto tagging on, and then what you do in AdWords is you connect your AdWords to your Google Analytics account, and Google actually manages the tagging for you on your behalf, and it connects the page, the stats, the keywords, all that kind of stuff gets connected and to your Google Analytics dashboard. Okay, so that's what automatic tagging is. It's handled by Google, and it works with organic traffic, it works with HTML link referrals, it works with direct visits, and it works with AdWords. Okay, now manual tagging essentially works with CPC, email, banner ads, offline ads, anything that you want to track, anything with an Ahref, anything with a link, you can actually manually tag, and we're going to look at that next when we start getting into this. So how many of you guys have actually started setting up your tagging and used the UTM code process that Google has? Can you guys give me a 1 if you've done this process before, or 2 if you've not actually gone and set up the UTMs? Okay, so I'm assuming most of you guys, when you've set up analytics, all you've done is you've gone to WordPress, you've copied the JavaScript code Google gives you, stuck it in, and then used the default reports. Can you give me a 1 if that's true, and 2 if you've actually gone a bit further than that? I'm just trying to assess how to, 1 mostly, okay. Okay, cool. Now this is the fun part, guys. This is where we start customizing and utilizing the power of Google Analytics just by playing with the URL of your actual pages. Okay, so if you go to this page here, support.google.com/analytics/answer, blah, 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 that number, I'm actually going to copy that and I'll put it into the chat.
I'll just put that in the link to everyone. Yeah, that's already done for you, Matt.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Kev. That basically gives you Google's URL builder, and this helps you create your UTM tracking query and strings, query string parameters that Google can recognize. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at next. All you basically do is you fill in the form, and then you copy the output of the URL, and you actually bind it to the element that is being tracked. So if it's an image, you drop it into the Ahref. If it's a link, you now have to set up your links. You just drop this code in onto the actual path. Okay, so who's actually familiar with what parameters are in query strings? So when we go to URL, whenever we see the question mark, okay, and there's a whole bunch of stuff behind it, that's called a query string. How many guys, give me 1 if you're familiar with it? I don't know the programmers will be, but the guys who don't code, I'm assuming that they wouldn't be using that. 2, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to show you guys how that works now. Let's have a closer look. So we got the URL builder, and basically what happens is we have an advert on one of our properties that are on our money site, and we want to drive traffic back to our money site. But now we need to track this, because if we are paying for this advert to be on someone else's website and we're actually pulling that traffic, we want to get a return on our investment. We want to know how many times that ad's been clicked, how many times it's been displayed, all this kind of stuff. And we also want to know how many times it's going to a specific page that we send it to, because we could have that same ad, like I explained earlier, on multiple places across multiple source types. Okay, so the way this works is essentially we're going to build up a URL, okay, and a query string typically is, I don't know if you guys have looked at dynamic web pages, and you see like a little question mark, then you see a parameter equals something, then another parameter equals something, and it goes on. This is essentially what we're going to be building out. Now, when we look at this referral information, we're going to actually pass to URL, to Google. we've got a few parameters that we can actually use that they've given us. Okay, and one is the campaign, one is the medium, one is the source, and one is the version, and there's one for copy as well. Okay. Now, what we typically do in the wizard that Google's given us is when we talk about a campaign, like Kevin said, this is a free text field that has meaning to yourself. So in this example, I've got TFCP2 recruit. That's the campaign we're running. We want to recruit more people for the Tech Foundation 2 course. Okay. The medium is going to be display. So I just wrote display dash banner ad. Okay, and the banner ad should have a name that has meaning. So it could be red widgets banner ad. Okay, that's your medium, and that clearly defines what advert is being presented. Okay, if it's text, we can just say text dash and something to recognize that. Okay, the source. This is the place that the actual advert or the banner ad or the text link is actually placed on. Okay, so I've just got this themezoomcertification.com, and the version, this is banner-gold. So this is our gold banner. So we've got a version as well. This could be gold banner number 5. And then what that means is with our segmentation, our filtering, we can actually filter by our versions in analytics, and we can actually do a comparison and see, okay, which of these banners that we created out of the series of 10 actually performed the best over X amount of time. So what we're doing now is when we actually go and build up the query string, when you use the wizard's going to basically generate this code where it'll be question mark UTM underscore campaign, then what we put in, and UTM underscore medium, then what we define there. And so it builds this up. Okay. Then once this URL is done, and we've actually added it to our link, when a person clicks on this link, this tagged URL is then passed to the landing page. As it hits the landing page, the Google Analytics code that we use on the actual landing page will recognize the UTM parameters and the values of each of those parameters, and it will actually take that query string, utilize that information, and push that information back into Google Analytics for us. And that's how we can track and test and measure across multiple media types. Guys, can you give me a 1 if you actually understand this concept and how it actually works? I just want to make sure you guys are clear on this because this is at the heart of everything. Awesome. I'm stoked. Mitch is asking, are there any shortening? Mitch, you don't have to worry about the shortening. If you're putting in the text URL, they'll see your anchor text. If it's in a banner, it'll be in the background. So you don't have to worry about shortening this type of URL. If you use a shortener, Google will not be able to read it purely because of the redirect. With shorteners, they redirect. I hope I understand your question right. Just give me a yes or no if that answers your question. But typically with these URL parameters, you don't want to have them going through any redirection where the actual parameters in the query string get lost, because you'll just get a blank referral. That's all. This, by default, it falls into the direct. So when you see the direct traffic, that campaign will just drop into direct because Google doesn't know what it is. Okay. Neil's asking a question.
Neil's got another question.
Yeah, it's really
Sure, Karen, Kev?
Yeah, that question's not so much part of this course, but I know Sue will probably want to jump in and answer it. So
I think the easiest way to answer that, Neil, is if we sort of read the question out, as Russ has said, you know, it's not really directed at this particular course, but there is some relevance for everyone. And the key part of this question that Neil's asked is, would you do this to every direct link to your money site? Now, the answer to that would be, in my opinion, yes. You want to track as much as possible of your campaigns and your promotions so that you know what is most effective, especially if you are running any kind of paid advertising or paid traffic campaign.
Yeah.
You want to see that your money is earning results for you. So I think that's probably the best answer to give you at this stage. But of course, it depends on the amount of time that you've got.
Yeah. Let me read the question so the audience has it. Would you do this? Would you do this to every direct link to your money site in your domain authority stack? That's specifically, I cannot agree. Yes, Kevin was, I think, speaking particularly to your direct links on your campaigns. If you're the domain authority stack, please see domainauthoritystacking.com and please see the information that we'll be providing with you about what to do with link shorteners and no follows specifically. As long as one thing we're not getting into too much here is the no follow aspect of these ads. If you've got no follow the heck out of the banner ads and the UTM stuff, it's no problem. You can still track while you're no following and then see the information that Sue will be providing later. Also, please clearly create a huge distinction between everything that we're teaching you and PBNs. This is not a PBN course. So a lot of the times, the only reason I say that is a lot of times I get questions back from you guys that are really, I know what you're asking about is PBN oriented, and that's nothing what we're talking about. And domain authority stacking is kind of in that department. So bottom line is you can still track, Kevin is 100% correct, track everything, mind on your money and your money on your mind, right? Track everything. Where is it coming from? And you can still no follow that in terms of SEO, you can still no follow your trackable links.
There was one saying that was I sort of saw today where was the guy from like the early 1900s. He's quite a famous man who made a lot of money, and one of the sayings that he said, I can't think of his name right now, was basically on all the money that I spend on advertising, half the time I don't know what I spent my money on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
In the context of what we're speaking about here, and we're speaking about the business, in the beginning of this program I sort of said to you guys, define what is best for your business and track that. So if you're going to be spending money, track it. If it has meaning to your business and it's a metric that you need to report on, track it. If it has no meaning, then don't bother with it. I think that's the simplest way I can sort of add that to what was being said.
Yeah, Matt's 100% correct. I know a lot of you guys already know this, but it is quite remarkable. There's comparative analysis done for big brands that don't track. You know, again, tracking is actually fairly new, amazingly, to the degree that we're able to do it on the web. It's only less than 5 years old, where your standard large organizations are now starting to track, deeply. Because, the web's not that old. I mean, this level of metrics and tracking has actually changed the course of human history and American and global business, because big budget advertising wasn't under this kind of scrutiny for the average consumer or the average business owner. So again, a lot of people remarkably are still not tracking, and it's not to track front to back, including all the way to conversions, especially when you have multiple product arrays and the rest. It's a challenge, but it'll be the coolest and most profitable thing you guys have ever done. And yeah, so that's that. Brian Hausler is asking, I'm assuming there's no need to mess with URL parameters and webmaster tools to not confuse with multiple indexed URLs, since Google Analytics is already clear that this is for tracking. That's a good question, Brian. One of you two want to answer that?
The UTM underscore is part of the parameter that Google recognizes. If you put other parameters in there, they will get picked up, but Google watches for those specific ones. You'll see on the next screen over here that this is the form that we fill in. I'm not going to take you through that right now. Actually, let's just look at that for a minute. And this is where it builds it up. And they're looking for specific UTM parameters. That's what they watch for. Anything else will just get tagged on, but they're not going to actually report on it. Those UTM underscores that they give us, which we'll see shortly, there's maybe 5, they are the specific UTM parameters we can use in Google Analytics to collate and gather this data so that we can actually break it down and report effectively on it. So you are right, you don't have to fuss it too much. Can you make it bigger? If you look in your chat window, Tim, there's actually a link. You can go to that web page and play around with it and see what it does. Okay. So, guys, if you click on the chat window, you can actually see this form. You can see how you can put it in. You can just type some stuff in and say submit, and you'll see it will spit out the UTM. And when it spits out the UTM, it will give you the full URL, because in step 1, it basically asks you for your HTTP website, and that's the actual source. This is where we're going to, okay? Step 2 is where we fill in the parameters, and then we press submit, and it spits it out. So it's super easy. But the difficult part, and the mistake most people make, is that they haven't defined exactly what is it they want to measure. So they typically keep on changing their campaign names and all this kind of stuff. and there's no way to segment and filter it. So always keep segmentation and filtering in the back of your mind when you start working with this. But it's super easy. Play around with it. It's really great. Okay, so testing the UTM, troubleshooting. Okay, before you put a URL onto one of your elements or your entities that you're actually going to be clicking on to move to the next place, test that. Take it, copy and paste that URL, stick it in the browser, and make sure, number one, that you actually end up in the end destination. Sometimes people do weird things and they end up in these crazy loops where Firefox actually loops so many times that they shut it down and say, well, this thing's got an infinite loop, we can't get there. So testing your tagged URL is super important. Okay, that's number one. Number two is when you test it, open up Google, click on real time, take the source URL that you've just created with all the query string parameters, paste it into the URL bar and press submit or enter, okay, and enter so you can actually load that parameter. What you're going to see is when you run this through the URL in the browser, in Google Analytics in the real-time data grid, you actually see one pop up and you'll see your medium and you'll see your campaign name popping up in the actual data grid. You'll see it in real time appearing, and that's almost like your sign-off. Okay, this URL is fine. I always recommend test first and prevent troubleshooting later. Okay, you don't want to be putting out a banner ad, be paying for all the clicks, and then your ad ends up in an infinite loop, and people never actually end up in your traffic. So you end up paying for these clicks, but they never actually end up in your site. So test your URLs always before you actually bind them to an element on one of your pages or to a URL or an anchor text. Okay, so what you'll see then is the parameters have been set and the tagging was successful. So just to reiterate what we've done here, we've gone to the wizard at Google, we've taken the URL builder, we've filled in our parameters, we've pressed submit, we've copied the URL, we've opened up Google Analytics, we've clicked on real time, we've put the URL into our URL bar in another tab, press submit, we've entered that to load the page, and within a second or two you'll actually see Google Analytics responding, okay, as it hits your page with those parameters. You'll see your parameters are coming in, and that's how you know that that actual tracking code is working. Okay, guys, can you give me one if you're clear on that process that I just explained? It's super easy, it's not complicated, not scary, and it's actually quite fun seeing these things work.
Hey, Matt.
Okay.
Matt, I actually wanted
the thing is, once you've got a lot of traffic, yep.
I actually wanted to add one thing to this. It's super easy. We'll get into it more in upcoming modules. Be thinking large scale with your naming convention. That's something I know Kevin will acknowledge as well. Try to do the same thing every time if you can, and just know that top level category. Think in terms of looking over all of your sites and where all of your traffic is coming from. So kind of create a convention so that you know, for example, if I have a PinVid site, I actually dub it as PinVid, so that, you know, when I'm looking at my umpteen thousand websites across different analytics systems, I know that it was a WR2. In other words, you know, come up with a convention that you use every time. You'll be really happy when you start getting a lot of different sites and traffic, which is inevitable for all you guys. So.
Yeah, exactly. Because that boils down to segmentation and filtering, guys. When your naming convention works, your filtering works, which means your reports are accurate. They give you consistency, which means whoever you share those reports with, they can appreciate it and they can actually make value out of it. Okay. So here's the UTM parameters. We've got the campaign source, and it's UTM_source. And the UTM source is basically to identify a search engine, a newsletter name, or any other source. Okay. So the source is basically always the place where you're putting the actual ad. That's where it's coming from. That click is coming from that place. And that naming convention should be part of your system that helps you define where it sits in your actual web ring. The campaign medium, okay, is to identify the medium type. Okay. Now remember, the medium is essentially the categories like social, PPC. Could be just be pinvids. It's whatever you want to categorize that you're going to use over and over again for multiple things. It's that one-to-many relationship. So you can have many adverts running through one medium channel, many sources through one medium channel. Okay. The campaign term, okay, this is typically a keyword for the ad. So you can have like running shoes like they show there. Campaign content, this is where you can do split testing and you can do content targeted ads. Okay, so this is for different ads and links. Guys, can you give me one if you can hear me? The line's gone quiet, so make sure I haven't lost the connection. Okay, cool. And then campaign name, like Kevin said, this is the name that has got meaning to yourself. This is the name you're going to use to identify that specific campaign that you're running. Okay, so tagging consistency. One thing to know about tagging is that all the parameters are read. They are case sensitive. Okay, so when you create your medium and you create your source, those are case sensitive. So social and social are classed as two separate mediums and are accounted for accordingly. Can you guys give me a one if you understand what I'm saying here? Because this is really important, especially when it comes to actually building out your reports. Because you could have one ad running that is for the social account, which is coming from Facebook, and in your medium you could type social and social and Facebook all lowercase. What will happen is that the data will actually get split up between the two ads. Now you can do it purposefully if you want to, but typically try and keep everything lowercase and try and keep the spelling the same. Don't put dashes between words on some, or don't type camel case. Like a lot of programmers like to type camel case, where essentially everything's squashed up, but the first letter of the word is actually in a capital letter. Those type of things will create a split in your report because each entity is classed as a single thing and is accounted for. Exactly, Brian knows exactly what are you talking about, question mark. Okay, so when you're creating your manual tags, be sure to stick to a strict naming convention and standards. Okay, typically you can just open up a spreadsheet. It's good to just have a spreadsheet, and what you can do just for simplicity's sake is you can have a column saying UTM source, medium, term, content, campaign. Define what your naming conventions are and walk your way through that. Okay, so whenever you set up an ad, you go to your source spreadsheet, which you have in Google Docs or whatever, and you say, okay, cool, this is this going to this medium, and it's from this source. That's how it's spelled it. Copy paste, stick it in, and that will help you keep a standard which is consistent. Okay, this is very important, especially when you start tracking money and seeing how money flows through websites. If your adverts are split, then your money is going to get split and you're going to have two different things, which makes the reporting harder to read. Okay, try and keep all your tags lowercase. Okay, and when you're writing things, try not to leave spaces. Just use a dash in between your naming conventions. That's just purely for your URL. When we go back to the URL, I just want to go back a bit here, guys. When we're dealing with the parameters within the URL, what you want to do is just put a dash between. So if you've got tfcp2-recruit, don't leave a space, because typically when the browser deals with the URL and there's a white space in the browser, it's going to basically put little funny characters in between that. Okay, and we don't want those things in there because it starts translating into our actual reports. You want to say something?
Hey Matt, can we actually go to the page where you create the URL string and just show them what? I think it would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, let's open this up quickly. Okay, I'm here.
Perfect.
We have some people.
Okay. Did you want to say something?
I don't think the audio is
I don't think you've lost the audio, Brian.
It just went quiet. Yeah, just go ahead and fill out several of those, and then hit submit so you see what happens.
So while Matt's typing these out, if I just sort of go over what we've said before, the page that you're looking at, the website URL has got the asterisks there, and that's a required parameter. We need to have the URL that we're going to. The campaign source, again, is also a required URL. And here we're looking at this, and we're going to be taking people to the networkempire.com site from the themezoomcertification.com site, and the medium is going to be a banner ad. Now, the campaign term is not required, it's there for your benefit to help you segment a little bit further. So where Matt's put in the campaign term analytic coaching, that's going to appear in the URL as you'll see at the bottom. Now, I'm going to ask Matt here, where you've just sort of said to everyone to put a dash in between everything, where you haven't put the dash between the analytic and the coaching for the campaign term, is that because it's a keyword, Matt?
Yeah, it's just a keyword, and it's not actually going to get pushed into the actual URL. It will be there.
It will be there.
The character that gets put in between here is basically going to get translated as a white space. We'll see now when it does that. When it goes into the actual browser, Firefox by default will put that little, I can't think of what it is now, it's like a percent whatever in there, which creates a white space.
Percent 20, yeah. And then the campaign name, this is the element, the parameter that's going to be for your benefit so that you know the campaign that you're working towards. And then as soon as this is done, all you need to do is literally just click on the submit button and the magic happens, as you can see there. So the URL that's appeared in the grey bar.
Is that clear for you all?
That looks good to me, Matt. Yep. Okay. And here with this URL you can see all of the different elements that Matt has spoken about and typed in are broken down. At the beginning we've got the networkempire.com and the TFCP2-recruit, the URL that the visitor that clicks on this link will be taken to. Then you've got the UTM_source equals, and the themezoomcertification.com is put in. Then there's the and we move to the UTM medium, which was the banner ad element that Matt put in. Then we move to the and UTM term, and we can see the keyword analytic coaching, and the percentage 20 denotes the space between the words. The next element of the URL that's created for you when you use the tool is the UTM_content. Again, this was analytic coaching. And then after the analytic coaching, we've got the and UTM campaign name, which we've got as TFCP _2 space coaching program. And this is how the URL is constructed by Google, and when it's clicked on, the analytics will split all of these different elements up, and you'll be able to go through your analytics and click on the different segmented results to gauge the effectiveness of every aspect of it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I was saying, guys. If you use dashes, then you don't get the percent 20. If you don't use dashes, you use space, it'll stick that in. So that's what I was trying to say. Sometimes for programming, the browsers change things, so that's why I just try and be strict and I stick my dash in. But it's not crucial. It's just a preference I personally have, just to keep my reporting nice and sweet and clean.
Yeah. Okay. And one thing I would like to add, as somebody who has done a lot of this the wrong way and a lot of it the right way, there's one thing that does come up that's not really addressed here, and that is you can see that Matt has communicated that the source is themezoomcertification.com, and what's being promoted there is Network Empire in this particular sample case study. If you've got, and we'll get into this a lot more with Kevin on the advanced certification level 3, the automatic video stuff, if you've got multiple locations on the site that you have multiple banners, personally I prefer to know just, on the analytics area or in the campaign area, which location on the page the banner is located, especially if you have 4 or 5 different locations where there's a banner. Distinguish the banner location by glance so that when you're dealing with, say, 100 pin bid sites, where you're looking at them all, you know which locations. You'll begin to see patterns in the location. That's just a preference I had. Kevin, I don't know if you have a better way of doing it or addressing it. It's not by any means. I'm talking about the medium location.
At the end of the day, it's one of those things that only when you start using the analytics do you start actually sort of realizing what you could have done better. So by following the principles that we've put here, that's going to give you a rock solid start.
Yeah, I just want you guys
absolutely bang on.
Well, I want those guys to know why. It's a big deal. I could show you my Google Analytics account. It's kind of comical, but I won't because it reveals a lot of different things. But the main thing is that what you discover is if you've got 150 sites all under one single control panel, whether it's advanced or Linux or whatever, and you start seeing patterns, if you know that, for example, under video, a site-wide, like for example, I call one banner site-wide banner, that tells me at a glance, when I'm looking at 150 different sites, that the site-wide banner on all of them can easily be sorted in the campaign section. And if, for example, I'm getting a whole lot of clicks, if I'm getting a whole lot of click to the under video banner, which the PinVid site just happens to be the case, it gets like 3 times the amount of traffic overall, depending upon the creative. You can really, really easily look at that. If you if it says just banner, you don't know the location, so you could go banner sidebar or banner site-wide or like that. So you can just name the location of the banner. It's just a really cool thing because it's surprisingly how much time it saves you when you're doing a large-scale number of websites.
Yeah, guys, remember, it's just your medium that you want to keep very broad, but these parameters that we put in your free text, you can put in what you want.
Well, the problem
point that Russell makes.
The problem with the campaign medium source is it's not showed on the top level. If you put the location of the banner in the lower part, you have to drill deeper into the analytics campaign in order to determine where the location is. So I would strongly recommend that you use, if you're going to call it banner, that you call it, if you're going to add locations, doing it on the banner field. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you mean on the campaign field.
I'm sorry, on the campaign field.
Campaign field is what you see at the top level.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so there's a couple of different ways you can do it. So for example, the campaign could be banners, and then when you drill down into it, you could have the different kinds of banners.
But you have to go deeper.
Yeah, you have to go deeper. You don't see it on the initial screen. So we actually showed both screens earlier in the Webby.
Right, and the ones that we showed were too deep for my taste because if you have 150 sites, like there's no way, if you want just a daily global overview, I want to know which banners across the 150 sites got clicked, and I want to do it in 2 minutes or less.
Right.
So you can't really do that if you go lower.
And you want to differentiate everything in the campaign at that point.
Exactly. And it's a little weird. Like I didn't discover it until we started building hundreds of sites like that. And it's the best way to do it is the way that Matt laid down in terms of accuracy for long term, but for lazy bastards like me, you kind of want to just put it in the location on the banner.
Yeah, so as Russell makes a brilliant point here, the UTM campaign is typically the link that you'll click to drop down into the campaign, and it's that naming convention there. Is that what you're referring to for the location? You're expanding on the actual naming convention to be more precise for site-wide things.
No, I was saying that when I set up, I'm sorry, I didn't even understand what you just said. Can you repeat that?
No, what I was asking was, I first said that the campaign, _campaign, what you name it there, that's what we see when we click to drop down into it. So it's on the actual _campaign, UTM, is where you're actually defining that. I just want to let the guys know what UTM code you're actually putting that name in.
Well, it's exactly like
the source, or is it actually the campaign?
Oh no, it was just exactly what you were saying. The only thing I was suggesting is something that I discovered, and if Sue and Kevin find a better way, tell me a better way to change stuff. I usually do. What I'm saying is that if I don't want to drill down deep into the campaign of a particular thing to find out where on the site the banner is actually sitting, if they're all called banner, you don't necessarily know where the banner is located. If it's the same campaign with multiple banners, you're not going to know. So what I just found out to save me huge amounts of time in the global Google Analytics control panel, which is just an overview of hundreds of sites, is that if you name it banner sidebar instead of just banner, you've got a distinct location with the same campaign location, which, for example, if it was theme Zoom certification, and there's 4 different banner locations, then I'll know which one is getting the most traffic without having to go deep into the campaign on my daily overview. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great point, Russell. You're making a...
Guys, give me a 1 if you want to actually see what this looks like, and a 2 if you guys understand what they're talking about, and we're good to go on. half and half. I got it on my screen. Shall I just show it really fast, Matt?
Sure. Let me pass the presenter to you. Okay.
All right, so I'm here, I'm in acquisition, I'm in campaigns. That's that initial screen. This is where you actually see the name of the campaigns at a glance. So I can just look down here and I can see, and this is what he's talking about. So like on Multi-Channel University, we've got 2 different banners, and you can see at a glance how much traffic each banner is bringing in.
And if
So
I had,
if
yeah.
he had just named this,
Sorry, Sue, go ahead.
that's okay. If he just named it Multi-Channel University and put both of those banners in a different, put the individual banner names in a different, like in the medium, then you'd have to come down into here to see what the 2 different mediums were,
Yeah.
and to see what the different percentages are.
And I would like to show, maybe privately at some point, my general Google Analytics overview is there's so many sites on it at this point that my daily overview would take an extra hour if I had to go to that second level. So it's
Right.
pretty easy. I've got
I
things set up.
completely understand.
I've got things set up on one of my 70-inch monitors here that when I go through things every week or every other day, that I can just go boom, 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 and Sue and I can take a global look at the exact locations. It's really weird because some markets we find that the site-wide banner, especially on the new semantic site-wide semantically marked up banner on the new pin vid board theme Kevin made. You know, some markets it'll get more traffic, and so we just know quickly.
Yeah. So you can name these campaigns whatever you want to. Brian was asking, were those actually separate campaigns, not sources? It's the same. It's 2 different sources on the same site, but you can name that campaign whatever you want it to be. So each individual campaign name, as you put it in that, let me just Google UTM Builder. Whatever you put in this campaign source is going to be the thing that pops into this campaign here. So if you use the same campaign source for multiple banners, then they're going to roll up under this campaign here. Does that make sense? Guys, give me a 1 if that makes sense, and 2 if it's still a little fuzzy. Yeah, this here is the campaign name. All right, cool. I will pass it back to you, Matt. Thank you.
No worries. Yes, so that's the valid point, guys. Think about your screen equity and where your banners are positioned, and then when you set up these campaign names, you can define them how Russell explained. That's a great idea. I didn't actually think about it today as well. So that's also a very, very good thing. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, so before it again, wait. Okay, so we've got that one done. Okay, so are you guys clear on tagging and how simple it is? Just give me 1 if you guys are clear, and then we'll just jump on to actually setting up the goals for our sites. Okay, cool. Right, guys, so when you're setting up your goals, the first thing you want to do is you actually want to document the steps that the visitor will follow. And before you start documenting the steps that the visitor is going to follow, you've got to be clear on what is the actual goal. What do you want to achieve? So in this example, what I've done here is I've just looked at the typical contact form. Like with Sarah's site, the people take 2 actions. They either phone the salon through the phone number, or they fill in the form, and they actually submit the form, and then we call them back. Okay, so in this example, what the guy does is he first clicks on the link to get the contact form. The form appears, the user fills in the form, the user presses the submit button, and then the user is directed to the thank you page. Now, when we set up the goals, essentially what we're going to do is we basically just going to fill in the URL of where he submits the form, and where he lands up, the end goal will be the thank you page. Okay. Now, if you got one of the websites where you press submit and the URL does not change, i.e., let's just say it's domain-name.com/contact form, the guy fills in the form and he presses submit, and the form posts back to itself, and you end up on the same contact form. it's recommended that you basically get another page created. So there's an actual thank you page that gets sent to. Because Google Analytics in the goals, you can't send the goal, you can't use the end goal as one of the steps in the process. That's what I'm trying to say here. Okay. Do you guys understand what I was saying there with that whole process? Just give me one if you're clear on what I was saying there with regards to that. So you need, when you set up goals, you need at least 2 URLs that are different. Each URL must be unique. You can't use the same URL twice because post-back captures don't work well with setting up the goals. Okay. Right. So the first step, if you document the steps, the visit follows. Okay, that's done. So the final thoughts that I have on this whole chat today is this. Basically, you want to be clear on what metrics are important to your business. You want to define what needs to be tracked. Remember, manual tagging is reviewed as exact match. It's case sensitive, and social is not the same as social, and they'll be accounted for as 2 separate entities. You want to keep all the URL parameters lowercase for tagging. Any link URL href can be tracked. Documents and recorded URLs should be used when creating goals. And then Google is not the only analytics system. There are others like PWIC, GetClicky, and the Wright. Okay. Now, when it comes to doing phone tracking, so do you want to have a little bit of a check on phone tracking? Because this is something that's not covered by Google Analytics, and typically that's a metric that's often missed. We haven't got it in here because we're still going to be speaking about it later on. But is that something you want to have a chat about now?
Sure. So there are 2 different sources that that we can recommend for phone tracking. One of them is Twilio, and the other one is If by Phone. Now I've used If by Phone, and If by Phone just acquired Mongoose. That's public.ifbyphone.com. Maybe I can grab the screen for a second. Hang on. Come on. Oh, there we go. All right. So If by Phone just acquired Mongoose, and one of our clients. One of our previous clients used this very effectively, and it's kind of cool in that you can use scripting with it, so that he had it set up so that he had a bunch of local phone numbers, and so it would the script would sense the IP address as the page loaded, and it would display a local phone number on that page so that they could make a local call, and so that they understood that he was a local provider rather than a national distributor. So, so then the other cool thing that If by Phone does with the Mongoose metrics is that it will actually tie into your Google Analytics. So they call that number on the page, and that actually gets recorded into Google Analytics as you can set that up as a goal, and that actually gets recorded then as a goal for that page, and so it'll do tracking. So if you've got local clients that you're servicing, you can track the leads that you're generating, and typically what you do is you take a percentage of the leads off as being bogus phone calls, that kind of thing, and so this is going to provide you a report that you can actually forward on to your client. You can use it for billing purposes, and it provides you feedback directly in your Google Analytics so that you can look at all of those things that we talked about earlier. You can watch the fall-off, you can watch the conversions, and you can see what's happening that's good and where you might be able to improve things. So then the other option is Twilio, which looks really cool. Both Kevin and Matt were familiar with this, but I was not. Do one of you guys want to speak to this?
Yeah, Twilio is a great app. It works with Gravity Forms as well. It plugs in. It also works with a service called Zapier, which is almost like if then that. But basically what it does, it provides phone services but also SMS services. And essentially in your lead capture routine, when you think about it, the person will phone in or they'll type in the contact form. You can have that contact form actually send one of the guys you're generating leads for. It'll actually pass the lead on via SMS and email. So it's a very, very powerful service, and when you make that direct contact and the person who's receiving that call can actually phone that person back, they can pull that person off the market faster, and it helps you improve on your conversion rates. So Twilio is a very, very diverse service, but it's also very powerful and it's easy to use and implement. They're very, very cool. I like them a lot.
All right.
Okay. So guys, that's...
Go ahead.
Sorry, Karen Sue?
That's fine.
Now, as I say, that's basically it about Twilio. Okay. So that's it about analytics. Do you guys have any questions at this point in time with regards to analytics that we've not covered? But just as a summary of the whole process, essentially what we do is we define what it is we want to track. We think about segmentation and filtering, how we're going to segment what we're going to track, how we're going to filter it. We think about the medium, what category does it fall into. We think about the sources, we can have multiple sources. We then go ahead and we build out manual trackable URLs and we tag them, and then that feeds all information back into Google, and then those are the metrics that we actually watch, and that's how we can get an accurate measurement of the activities that we're doing.
Great.
On our websites.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Let me just ask them, as far as this is the first week we've created this for certification too, so you guys are in the perpetual mastermind group, and this is the first run through. I want to just check in with all of you guys since this is actually the first week we've done this module. Did we cover what we needed to cover for you? And give me a 1 if we've covered what you expected to be covered. And also, instead of giving me a 2 if not, can you put in questions and or anything that you were hoping to get out of this, if you were hoping to get out of something out of this module that you did not today, because we can still cover it. I just want to make doubly sure, because there's a lot to cover in this particular thing. Wow, I actually got a green light from Brian Hassler, which is awesome. That says something good. Okay. All right, looks like everybody's really getting what they needed to. Go ahead, though, if you've got something we didn't cover. Let's see. Steve is saying something here. Steve Melton. Okay, Steve, can I read that out loud? Sir? Okay. Steve Melton uses if by phones, but have not hooked up the Mongoose feature in analytics. Okay, gotcha. I would be interested in hearing more about the Mongoose integration. Yeah, you run it into Salesforce. Okay. Yeah, that's quite a trifecta there. All right, so I'll be curious to see if the rest of our group would be wanting to know more. Okay, and Tim is saying, yes, he loves what we presented, Matt. He just needs to sit down and actually do some of it. That's good.
Yeah, guys, if you get stuck, just give me a ping, and I can sit with you privately. We can actually look at what you're doing, and I can help you do that, get those things worked out if you are jammed up.
Sue, we're gonna end here and not go into the social media tracking because we didn't have a huge preparation for that. Do you want to just move on?
Yeah, the platforms that we ran down were way too expensive, in the thousands of dollars per month.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a good solution for that yet.
Okay, I do have the Bitly data open here, but we can go over that another week, I suppose.
We can pass you the screen.
Well, this is super. We'll just call this a bonus today because we are not prepared the way we want to be. We've got some plans for you guys on how to track social links. We do it in different ways. I do want to. Does anybody here use Bitly or any link shortening services like that? Give me a 1 if you're tracking your social media stuff effectively. I just wanted to show, just super quickly. This is a client interface. This is not ours. Actually,
sorry, Russ, can I pass you the screen?
Yes. Do I have the screen open, or?
I just wanted to make sure before I pressed OK that your screen was what you wanted to show.
Yes, it's good. There is no porn on my screen. I'm good. Or I do not have the whole outline for Skyfall on here. Okay. This is really super simple, guys. This is not anything earth-shattering. I just wanted you to know that people have asked me, it's a common question for the one feed, for everything else on link shorteners, because there's so many layers of stuff going on, you guys. I know you know that. You've got link shorteners that are good as 301 redirects in terms of stacking juice properly. You've got domain authority. You've got GSA. You've got all these different things. You've got automatic social for WR1, WR2. What I have found is that overall, when you're using things like Twitter feed, not recommended for long-term automation, but good in some cases. When you're using other things like that, Bitly has two different functions of tracking. This is a little bit of a separate conversation. The Bitly corporate version is something like $2,000 a month, and the reason they charge that much is because they aggregate all of your data into one location. So this is a one client login that we have of several, and this one is designed purely to track her kind of small Twitter army. I think of it like maybe 5 or 6 different accounts that she has. And so I just wanted to let you guys know the difference between free Bitly when you just grab the Bitly and the version between an integrated Bitly account where you provide your information in a real control panel is that they give you this link overview of your clicks per day, right? And this is one of the things that we use to test headline click-throughs on a larger scale on our own personal account. Okay, this one belongs to Ramona of healinggrapevine.com. It's a very small business that sells like far infrared stuff. And, so what she does when she puts out through her social network, which is pretty small, when she puts it out, she'll be able to find out where the clicks are coming from and so on and so forth. You can't get that in the free version. In other words, if you just default to the free Bitly, and I know that some of you already know this, when you default to the free Bitly, you get no metrics. So the advantage, you've asked me before, the advantage of using a Bitly account with your own token that's aggregated to your specific API, even the free version, will get you this general overview. And sometimes you see spikes in articles. Like on ours, we'll see sometimes like 100 or 200 clicks in one day for a headline like we did on the Skyfall article or anything and you can kind of see in headline testing, which we talked about on week 3, this is one of the major functions you can use using Bitly URL shortener. It's a better aggregator than most systems. Now, there's some good ones out there, but it really does have nice interface. Hopefully that makes a little sense to you guys. Does that make sense? Give me a 1 if you kind of know where I'm coming from. Okay. Any questions on that? It's the cheapest, fastest solution for headline testing through social media networks, okay, that I know of, to actually test on a large scale and then get a global overview. Okay, good. Any further questions on that? We're actually gonna provide you extra information on this when we provide you the global social media module, or we're going to actually be adding stuff the next time around on this. Anybody using anybody using large scale Bitly? I track my Twitter armies on a large scale with this as well. And for a free service, it's pretty good. Again, the paid version for Bitly is much more useful. Okay. And another thing I wanted to emphasize is the Bitly paid corporate gives you the past 1 year, 5 years, and that's where it really gets interesting. As you can see, your kind of social behavior through the last 1 or 2 years. And that's where it gets really interesting. You can see pockets of headlines and interests and even trends throughout your network. And you're not limited to a certain number of accounts. Now, Hootsuite also has the ability to integrate their metric systems through Google Analytics. That's a whole nother, Hootsuite actually has their own university and training courses. I've taken some of them. They're very advanced. But again, for low-cost social media tracking, these two are the best, Bitly and Hootsuite. Hootsuite provides its own global URL called owl.ly. You guys familiar with that? Give me a 1 if you've used Hootsuite before and a 2 if you have not. Okay. Before it went paid. Neil, the $6 a month is worth it. This is a company that's owned by Hearst Media. And Sue and I had the interesting experience of being able to sit down with Hearst Media. It's a $1 billion company here in Scottsdale. I think it was 2 years ago or something. I will tell you something. I'm going to give you guys my opinion about aggregator services and social media services after several years of working on this with large-scale social integration. I have over I've actually almost maxed this out for social media. You can only fit 100 social accounts in one Hootsuite account without going into the enterprise version. Okay, you can see it's up to 100. Enterprise, I'm definitely moving towards having that. Most of the reason I don't need it is because I have enough sub-accounts, and a lot of the time for clients, I'll set them up their own Hootsuite, their own personal account, for their network. The main thing I want to emphasize to you is what I don't like are free services like if this then that. I know several of you are using that. I enjoy it. There are certain things that you can only do with if this then that because they're so robust and flexible. And what I don't like after years of experience, including with Twitter feed and the rest, is that they're free services. And I'm always suspicious about free services. The more that I have been taught by Sue Bell and Kevin and Matt about development, the more suspicious I am when somebody's giving important stuff like my feeds away for free. And because what's happened is if you've got a network out there, I'd rather be paying for solidarity and know that developers are on the other end than something that's free that goes away or is gone the next day. Or like we talked about in our other chat room, some of you RSS feeds that are not pinging properly, they probably throttled down their server a little bit, or just either that or they're just plain old going out of business. You just don't know. I mean, we've seen a lot of things come and go. I want to know what the business model is. Hootsuite's owned by Hearst Media, and they're well funded. So that's one of my personal opinions about it. I would rather pay for an aggregator than go free. Any questions on that?
Yeah. Tons of RSS generators researching are now gone.
Yeah.
That was a conversation in the forum today.
Yep.
And I'm going to look into, broke and got abused. I'm going to look into creating some for our members.
Yeah.
Because then we can put up something that'll be robust and solid.
For instance, our Google Plus RSS generator. I hope some of you guys are using that. We work on that. We have a developer on retainer. We make money, so we're not going to lose the RSS scenarios. I can't tell you. It's actually one of the biggest pains I've ever had to do is go back through a couple of clients' account and remove Twitter feed and change it over to Hootsuite. It wasn't that big of a deal, but ain't nobody got time for that, So, the paid things, just because it's paid doesn't mean it's awesome either. But I am saying there does seem to be a tendency for paid services in terms of aggregation to last. So that's really what we want to focus on. Downside of Hootsuite is it has really a limited number of services that it syndicates to. As some of you guys have probably figured out, Pinterest has no technology out there that syndicates to it except Social Explosion, which is ours. And it's a plugin based solution. I find that, I guess that the exception might be Snap. Maybe you guys have used the new version of Snap. Snap, I haven't updated. Probably Sue or Kevin might have an update on that. Snap would work off and on. It claims to be able to publish to Google Plus Personal. Hootsuite does publish to Google Plus Pages very well, and I've been running some of my feeds directly through blog feeds from Pinvid sites through Hootsuite with zero downtime for over a year and a half. That is, wow, that's just like fantastic, right?
Yeah, downtime, you don't want that.
Kevin McCarthy is saying that Snap is working with Pinterest and G+. Kevin, have you personally tested that and confirmed that it's working properly? Because that is news to me. Okay. All right, so they're up from 3 months ago where they were down for a moment. But again, that's a paid software, so maybe he has a developer that he keeps and stuff. Sue, have I covered that enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'll go ahead and give the, actually from here, I guess let's talk about any homework assignments. Sue, did somebody set up homework assignments for the group in the homework area?
I did not.
Okay, I will give out homework assignments then. Matt, did you have a homework assignment prepared, or were we had a Skyfall update, so we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants?
Yeah, no, basically the homework, for the guys who haven't set up analytics, I'd like them just to go and set up a basic simple campaign just to get a feel for it. And then for the guys who have played around with analytics, just refer back on what we spoke about today and go have a look and see what you've done and see if there's any tweaks or things you can improve on.
Yes, and when you guys set up a URL code, can you please, if you don't mind sharing it with your instructors, can you please copy and paste me personally the first UTM code that you set up, and or Matt, just say, hi Matt or hi Russell, here's my UTM code, will you take a look at it? I just want to see how you're putting it together and what you're actually setting up, and it also might open up a conversation about what you're actually promoting and the rest. So it's a good thing to see your UTM code. Also, it's kind of a getting to know you. Be pretty helpful. All right, good. So we're going to wrap this up for this week. Please stay tuned. Sometime in the next, either tonight, I'm still waiting for the final statement for certified level instructors who were not on the certified advisor call for Skyfall. Just stay tuned. We'll provide you with a statement, an official statement. And thank you so much, guys. I'm really enjoying working with you. And I'll just hand it over to Sue.
All right. I don't know why I got the hot seat, but that's great.
Oh, because
so,
you got the hot seat because I heard the heavy breathing. Usually when you're heavily breathing, you're about to say something. Something. Yeah. Usually when I hear that deep-seated sigh, oh, exciting and useful things coming to the community. I am currently looking at all three of the possibly final versions of the Silo plugin. Kevin, I forwarded those. Kevin and I have been working on those. They're brand new. We're probably literally on the verge of releasing those to our closest. We have several testing processes we need to go through first. The other thing is Scott, one of our developers, has completed the RSS integration of the Social Explosion plugin. That means you're going to be kind of dangerous with RSS feeds. We're just going to actually, he's developing, he has to make a few changes to make sure that we're not too dangerous, because he was just going to like blow everything up. So he's going to make a couple of minor adjustments so that when you can turn your RSS feed campaign off. That's what I'm excited about. Make sure that you guys know that Kraken now has YouTube videos being pulled. This to me is the most powerful thing that we've added in the last 30 days that somehow I feel like is a little we have so much going on that I feel like it's been under-shared and under-explained. This means that you now know how many YouTube videos there are for each keyword in your keyword cluster in Kraken. Okay. Another thing now, and here's something. Yeah, it's called surrounding the camp. We are surrounding the camp. The other thing that we have going on is Kevin is the semantic pinboard theme, which will be a part of the automatic video traffic course coming up in October, is fully operational, or about to be fully operational. Guys, like even the banner, even the site-wide banner in this thing is semantically marked up. I didn't even know you could do that. This thing is crazy. We're talking. Oh, another exciting thing that's happening is the Video Kraken Dominator plugin is in development. Sue has been a spec writing fool on a variety of fronts. And we will keep you informed also about the perpetual keyword money machine. It's very much related to the module that we gave you guys today. Now, one thing I wanted to share with each and every one of you is that this is the first version or the first variation of our level 2 certification course. You guys will be the first to find out about the full integration of our tracking and PKMM system and all the relationships that we have carefully considered in light of Skyfall and redirects and everything else. This plugin that's going to be connected to this course upon completion is like nothing I've ever seen. Sue stayed up late with me when I expressing what is going on in this tracking plugin. Kelly sat up last night with Sue bragging for an hour and a half. I mean, he is a good programmer, but he likes to brag. I just want to let you guys know we've got a lot going on, and we are doing our best to communicate all of that with you. And we appreciate any help on your part communicating to other members what's coming on. Officially, the amount of information that I have to convey to our various memberships has gone beyond my capacity to communicate. So we appreciate all the help for you certified advisors who are on the front line to communicate what's happening. Thank you.
And you guys are going to get a beta test the PKMN plugin when it's ready to go, and the RSS aspect of Social Explosion.
Yeah, we're gonna need to work together with you on that testing, because it's really powerful. Like I was hammering the crap out of my YouTube RSS feeds on the test version. Wow, like just wow. All right, you guys, this has been awesome. Network Empire team. This has been Matt DeCruz presented today with Kevin Pauly, and of course, architect and our fearless leader, Sue Bell. My name is Russell Wright. We'll see you on the next webinar, Tech Foundation 1. For those of you guys who are taking that, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
guys.
Cheers, bye.